1.3 Ergogenic Aids by Ula Charles. Ergogenic aids are known widely as performance-enhancing substances, techniques or equipment which are used to improve sporting performance. There are 5 different types of aids that are used by many different athletes. There are pharmaceutical aids such as caffeine and sports drinks which are used to increase energy and alertness. There are physiological aids which are used to aid how our body performs during performance or when training. For example, acupuncture, which is used to relieve pain, which makes it easier for a performer to train. There are mechanical aids, which can be in forms of equipment, or devices such as harnesses, which are used in sports such as trampolining, which keeps an athlete safe as well as feeling more confident to perform a hard skill. There are psychological aids, which help us mentally for when we perform, such as listening to music, which can relax a performer before they have to compete. There are also nutritional aids, which are aids we consume or can incorporate into our diet to increase our performance, such as sports drinks which help give us extra energy. Athletes such as Serena Williams listen to music through headphones to help focus herself before competing. Other athletes such as Marion Jones use steroids to enhance her strength and performance. Overall, they help us train and perform better, and there are so many that can target certain weaknesses. However, some ergogenic aids are legal and some are not, and this can change how often that these are used. Key organisations. There are key organisations that are used to determine which aids are legal and not, and this is updated regularly to keep athletes and coaches informed on what they are allowed to use. Some of the key ones are the World Anti-Doping Agency, the International Olympic Committee, UK Anti-Doping and national governing bodies. The World Anti-Doping Agency coordinates and monitors the fight against doping in sport in all forms to lead a collaborative world according to the World Anti-Doping Agency. There is also the International Olympic Committee who monitor the use of illegal substances and aids in the Olympics for every country that takes part. For example, they have made full-length swimming suits not allowed in the Olympics as it is thought that they give an unfair advantage. There are smaller organisations which work in smaller areas such as the UK Anti-Doping, which gives annual reports to UK athletes on what aids are prohibited and what is allowed. This is used to monitor English competitors competitions such as the Premier League, as well as making sure that all UK athletes are going by the rules set for international competitions as well. There are also national governing bodies which work with their sports, such as the Lawn Tennis Association, which monitors the conduct of doping and set rules so that competitors in individual sports know the rules. Physiological aids. Blood doping, stated by the Oxford Dictionary, is the injection of oxygenated blood into an athlete before an event in an attempt to enhance athletic performance. This is typically done by endurance athletes who require a lot of oxygen in their blood so that they can make energy for their working muscles. When blood doping, the aim is to boost the number of red blood cells in the performer's bloodstream, which will help increase their performance level. This is done by removing around 1 to 4 units of blood. It will then be stored for several weeks. Then, when needed, usually during a competition, the blood will be diffused back into the performer's body. This sparks an increase in red blood cells in the athlete's body and an increase in haemoglobin. These cells are then used to transport oxygen around our body to the working muscles that need it. As the athlete will now have produced more, the time it takes to distribute the same amount of oxygen will be quicker, making the body create energy more efficiently so it is less likely to fatigue as quickly. As the red blood cells increase, it increases the thickness in the blood. This means that our heart muscles will become stronger as it will have to work harder to pump the blood around the heart. However, there are health risks which are related to blood doping, including heart disease, strokes, heart attacks, and due to the increased thickness of blood, increase in blood clots. These can all be fatal to athletes. It is deemed illegal due to it artificially enhancing an athlete's performance. Even though it isn't allowed, many athletes still do it, as it is very hard for it to be detected, as there is a hormone produced that enhances the blood naturally produced by the body, which makes it so difficult to detect. The Anti-Doping Agency made it illegal and have the power to strip athletes of their right to compete or their awards. Blood doping is very common in long distance events such as running and cycling, where athletes need a lot of oxygen to produce energy. If caught, blood doping can receive bans, where you may not be able to compete for a certain amount of time. Lance Armstrong was an American long distance cyclist who won 7 Tour de France titles. However, he was then caught by the US Anti-Doping Agency for blood doping. Once proven, he was then stripped of all 7 of his Tour de France wins. Mechanical. Heart rate monitors are mechanical aids which are used widely to monitor an athlete's heart rate during performance. We are able to see if an athlete is training in their aerobic zone, which is around 70 to 80% of their max heart rate, or our anaerobic training zone, which is around 80 to 90% of our max heart rate. This allows us to see what intensity we are working at. They are very popular as our heart rate can show how hard we are working, so we can see what training zones we are in. Heart rate monitors are used widely by all athletes, due to there being a wide range of different types of heart rate monitors. They are able to be used by many different athletes, including swimmers and runners. Also, many team players will use them. For example, during training and matches, the whole of the Manchester City team uses heart rate monitors so that improvements in fitness can be tracked and so that the trainers are able to see if they were working hard enough or if they are pushing themselves too far. This also means that they are able to see what we may need to increase the intensity that we are working at. This means we have more knowledge of how we are performing, so we know that we may need to change or keep the same. Also, it can show our strengths and weaknesses, as it can show the strengths of our cardiovascular system, as well as it showing our ability to recover and how long it takes for our heart rate to return back to normal. Heart rate monitors can be very useful for all athletes, as it can give them an understanding on their strengths and weaknesses when they're performing. Heart rate monitors are always allowed to be used and are heavily used in training, especially by footballers. However, in some sports, heart rate monitors may not be very useful. For example, they may not be useful in sports such as tennis due to the athletes moving areas such as their arms a lot, which could confuse the monitors. Also, results may not be accurate, especially if put on incorrectly, which is very easy to do. Also, Polar Global has stated that heart rate monitors can also find it harder to measure heart rate through darker or tattooed skin, meaning that results aren't accurate for everyone and can be misleading information, which can lead to not needed measures being taken, such as increasing cardiovascular training when it isn't needed. There can also be connectivity issues, as technology has risks where it may not work and false readings may be given, which could lead to unnecessary advances. For the best, most accurate heart rate monitors, they can be expensive at around £200. However, there are cheaper alternatives that can be found for around £15, but these will lack as much accuracy. Heart rate monitors are allowed for training and are even allowed to be used during competition. Baking powder is sodium bicarbonate, which is typically used in cooking or cleaning. However, research has found that it can be used in other ways to help increase sporting performance. Baking soda is a base, which means that when dissolved into water, it forms an alkaline solution with a pH of around 8.3. This shows it is an alkaline, and anything that is over 7 on the pH scale is an alkaline. Anything lower than 7 is an acid. For example, lemon juice contains citric acid and has a pH of 3. This is called lactic acid buffering. When we exercise at a high intensity in our anaerobic training zone, which is where is around 80 to 9% of our maximum heart rate, when we work in these zones, we will produce energy anaerobically, which is without oxygen, as we won't be able to produce energy with oxygen, as when doing high intensity exercise it is harder to get a sufficient amount of oxygen for energy. When we create energy anaerobically, we produce a metabolic byproduct called lactic acid. Lactic acid declines our performance. This is because it inhibits our enzymes from creating more energy. This therefore leads to our muscles fatiguing as well as us experiencing soreness after doing exercise. Lactic acid has a pH of around 3.51, which shows that it is an acid. However, there is a way that can decrease the effects of lactic acid on our body during high intensity exercise. We can do this by consuming baking soda. If we consume baking soda before exercising, we can decrease the effects, as when the lactic acid is produced, we can use the baking soda to neutralise the lactic acid. This is because when an acid and an alkaline are mixed together, they cancel each other out to make a neutral solution. This means that when we consume baking soda, we can neutralise that lactic acid, which means that there won't be as much lactic acid, which will inhibit our enzymes from making energy, which means that we won't fatigue as quickly. Typically, someone such as Jess Ennis may consume baking soda when they do events such as 800 metres, as it is a high intensity event that lasts for a long duration. This means that there will be a high amount of lactic acid produced. However, if baking soda is used, then it may reduce the effects and make them slower. There are no guidelines or regulations for baking soda, and it is easily available for everyone at a low price. According to MaxReps, our psychological strength helps alongside our physical strength, determining our sporting performance. It is very important to have mental strength in sport as it helps us deal with pressure and stressful situations. However, many players' psychological strength isn't seen as important as physical strength, which means that for some, they may need to have aids to help them psychologically. According to the Oxford Dictionary, meditation is to focus one's mind for a period of time as a method of relaxation. For athletes, meditation can be used to increase strength on focusing on a task in hand so that they can drop distractions. Meditation can be done daily, or for many athletes is done before competing. This is because before we compete, our body will experience an increase in hormones, including adrenaline and cortisol. These are both stress hormones, which are compared by WebMD as built-in alarm systems, which prepares our body for a stressful situation. Although this is good and increases our alertness, if we produce too much, we can become over-aroused, which can lead to decrease in performance due to increased aggression, panic, and irrational behaviour. When we meditate, our cortisol levels decrease, and it makes it easier for us to focus on the task at hand, rationalise well as getting rid of the negative feelings and lowering nervousness before performing. Also, meditation helps lower our blood pressure. This means that our heart can work more efficiently and transport blood around our body more effectively, as when we have higher blood pressure, it can damage our heart. However, meditation isn't suited for everyone, as some people may not need it, and some who naturally have higher arousal levels may find it harder to concentrate on this task. Also, it may not be useful for all sports. Some sports, such as boxing, need high arousal levels due to the intensity and danger of the sport. This means that meditation may calm them down too much and have a reverse effect on their performance. Meditation is not restricted in any competitions by any governing bodies. Some elite athletes, such as LeBron James, who is a professional basket player, meditates. He has been very successful due to being calm and focused while playing, and this has led to him having NBA Most Valuable Player and 4 times, and winning 3 NBA championships. He said that after meditation, you get in the zone and just try to stay there. You don't think about your surroundings or what's going on with the crowd of the team. You're kind of locked in.